It is Midday Lively and Tweet and Dr. Drew. Number's 800-222-5222. Time to go out to Attorney John M. Phillips regarding Googliness and Amazonianness. John, welcome to the program.
Hey, Drew. How are you guys doing?
We are good. You can follow John at John Phillips, or also FloridaJustice.com. Google just settled for $11 million, but denied the allegations, correct?
That's what these class actions. They never admit anything, and the lawyers get, in this case, $2.75 million of the $11 million. Nice pay.
Well done. But it does bring up this whole issue of these tech firms maintaining this notion that someone has to fit their culture, so-called. And it just seems to me, and of course their culture is one of open intolerance, and one of the problems with the logic of tolerance is eventually you result in intolerance in the name of tolerance. And so I'm imagining that these cultures, however they conceive of it, is just a setup for discrimination of one type or another. It is.
So it's in the eye of the beholder to some extent, but certainly if you have a culture that you want 20, 30, and 40-somethings to continue to be recycled, which was the allegation here, on one part, you can hire who you want and the best qualified person for the job and almost justify training by, in the tech sphere by standards of today. The first class plaintiff in this case was 60-something years old, and he defined the word bite differently and couldn't pass what amounted to be a hearing exam with repeating of code, and he said that was discriminatory because elder people have hearing impairment. And it comes to the kind of ultimate question, well, with him, for instance, was he discriminated against because of an age culture thing, or because software engineers need to be able to hear a little better than somebody of his age was able to do? And there were 227 different claimants, and so all of them had little variances of how they were discriminated against, but the main last person was this lady named Cheryl Flakus, and she was specifically asked to put the dates of her graduation on her resume, and that's a little different. That is what it is. That's discrimination.
Huh. So, but I'm a little confused how having your age on there is different than having your age of graduation. Or your year of graduation.
It's the same thing. I mean, it you can do the math. I know, as an employer myself, if that's left out, I always look for it. Like, look, how long have they been out of school compared to the jobs they list?
Right.
Because sometimes people just list the last 3 or 4 jobs, and you don't know if they have big gaps of employment. There are reasonable bases to make a kind of determination based upon somebody's college time and employment history. But you can't do that merely based upon age. And in Cheryl's instance, that was more along the lines of discrimination, and I think that's why she was one of the lead plaintiffs, because they specifically said, hey, could you go back and put your graduation year down there? And she asked why, and she said, well, it's our culture. It's a culture thing.
Culture, yeah.
That flies into ADA violation.
Yeah.
But this whole notion of culture, that to me it's problematic. And I don't know why
they realize all those youngins that work at Google and Facebook are all going to become middle-aged, older people too eventually? They're the ones that are like, they forget that they're going to be the old people someday.
That'll be the culture.
Yeah, well.
They do, and then they'll downsize them for somebody, younger and more hungry who will work for half that.
Yeah.
My paralegal just retired after 20 plus years with me, and I hated to see her go because I've practiced 20 years, and so it's like, wait, this is the only paralegal I've ever known. She's trained me more than I've trained her, and I hated to see her go, even though every year was a bump in salary, and you get to that point, and you've just got to value experience and loyalty, and not say, okay, hey, we need a new culture around here, which is just a fake way of me saying I just want to get somebody cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I just want to discriminate,
Right.
the way
I just don't want old people around in our cool, hip workplace.
Right, that's my point. I want to discriminate the way I want to discriminate just because it's, that's my preference.
Our culture is young, cool people around here in our, cubicles and playing music.
And we see even in politics, so much that we're kind of allowed to discriminate and talk about how old our politicians are. And it's kind of age discrimination in a way too, as long as they're healthy. I know I've heard Trump's age so many times, and Bernie Sanders, every time they talk about how old he is, and Biden. And are we voting for culture? Are we, are we getting to a point where we're going to decide that too? And then as taxpayers and voters, are we guilty of age discrimination as well?
Well, I mean, look, there's some realities about advanced age. And as you approach 80, there are really serious medical concerns about people. Look, in my profession, you aren't able to practice until you're 80 just because you want to. If you start showing any evidence of impairment, you're out. And unfortunately, there's no mechanism. Well, there is, I guess, for president. But we don't want, people to be on the cusp of having their cognitive abilities and their medical situation decompensating in the presidency. Right. I mean, that's a different thing than discriminating against somebody from 55 because they're not cool and they're 55 years of age because they're not cool and hip. Right?
And getting out of it for a cool $35,000 total.
Right.
I mean, that's after the lawyers get theirs.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those guys. I get it. But after the lawyers get theirs, the two lead plaintiffs got an extra $10,000, but everybody else, despite not being able to fit the mold at Google, walk away with $35,000. And there's going to be some out of the 227 that found a job elsewhere and say, okay, that was okay. But there's some that, Google's one of our, it's everywhere. The crazy thing is I had to Google this story to be able to talk about it today. And I was wondering if I was going to, get true results.
That was being edited. Well, John, I got to let you go. I appreciate you spending a little time with us. John Phillips on Twitter and also FloridaJustice.com. We'll talk to you soon.
Great, Leanne, Dr. Drew. Talk to y'all soon.
Thank John M. Phillips, attorney in Florida. 800-2225-222 is our phone number. That's Leanne Tweeden. I'm Dr. Drew. This is Midday Live, AM 790 KBC.
KBC depends.